The game just changed in Huntsville. Carlos King didn't just flip the script, he burned the whole playbook and built a new one from scratch. The man behind the love and marriage empire just pulled off a move that even his biggest critics couldn't predict. No soft exits, no PR spin. Just power, raw and unfiltered. Marsau and LaTisha Scott, the couple who helped define the franchise from day one, have been cut. And not quietly. Carlos made sure the world heard the door slam. In an instant, he turned the show's heartbeat into its biggest headline. The fans are losing it. One half says it's about time, the other says Carlos just ripped the soul out of Huntsville. But this wasn't random. This was strategy. A message to every cast member, every producer, and every network exec watching. No one is untouchable. Carlos didn't build a hit, he built an empire. And in his empire, loyalty isn't enough. You bring the drama or you become it. Because in the world of reality TV, only one rule stands. Control the story, or the story controls you. The game behind love and marriage. Huntsville was never just about love or business. It was about power and control, and when Carlos King decided to cut Marsau and LaTisha Scott from the show, it wasn't a storyline, it was a message to everyone watching that nobody, no matter how iconic, was untouchable. From the start, Carlos saw in the Scotts a couple that could redefine what reality TV looked like. Two people who had the charm, the conflict, and the chemistry to make viewers feel something real every single episode. LaTisha was quiet strength, a woman finding her voice in a world that often tried to speak for her, and Marsau was confidence wrapped in controversy, a man who loved to lead even when his leadership rubbed people the wrong way. Together, they were lightning in a bottle, and they made love and marriage more than a show. They made it a mirror of ambition, love, ego, and the price of being seen. But the deeper the show dug into their lives, the more they started to feel exposed. LaTisha hated how the editing made her look too emotional, too dependent, too soft, while Marsau felt like every scene turned him into the villain of his own story, and when fans online turned their commentary into judgment, the couple didn't blame the fame, they blamed the man behind the curtain. That's when things shifted. The trust that once made the show great turned into suspicion and frustration, and the Scotts began pushing back, demanding more say over how they were portrayed and what parts of their lives were shown. To them, it was about respect, but to Carlos, it was about control, because a reality show only works when reality is raw, unfiltered, and sometimes uncomfortable. The moment the Scotts started trying to manage the chaos, Carlos saw the story slipping away from his hands, and that's something he doesn't allow. He's known for building empires out of tension, and when he senses a threat, he doesn't wait for it to grow, he cuts it out clean. Insiders say he started phasing them out quietly. Fewer storylines, fewer scenes, a little less focus each week, until one day there was no conversation left to have. When the meeting happened, it wasn't emotional, it was decisive. Carlos reportedly looked them in the eye and said it was time to move on. No drawn-out explanation, no sugarcoating, just a final call from the man who created the game and knew when it was time to change the players. Hours later, word leaked online and the reaction hit like a storm. Half the fans said it was long overdue, that the Scotts had outgrown the show and lost touch with the original energy. The other half felt betrayed, saying Carlos had ripped the soul out of Huntsville. Social media turned into chaos, with timelines split between support and outrage, and memes and fan theories flooding every platform. Through all of it, Carlos stayed silent, and that silence spoke louder than any press release could. When he finally addressed it on his podcast, he didn't drop names, but his words landed sharp and heavy. He talked about how entitlement poisons creativity, and how some cast members start believing they're running the show instead of being in it. Everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. And with that one statement, he reminded the entire industry of what made him different. Carlos King doesn't follow the noise, he controls it, and this time he made sure everyone in Huntsville knew the rules had changed forever. The silence didn't last long because the fallout hit harder than anyone expected. LaTisha started posting cryptic quotes on her story about loyalty and silence, and people instantly connected the dots. Marsau followed up with a picture outside his black cigar lounge with a caption that read, "Some folks forget who built the table they're flipping." They never mentioned Carlos by name, but they didn't have to. The timing said everything, and within minutes their comment sections turned into battlefields. Fans poured in with love fire emojis and words of support, calling them the real backbone of the show, while others came in swinging, saying this wasn't betrayal, it was accountability. It was clear that Love and Marriage had become two different shows in the eyes of its viewers, one where the Scotts were heroes, and one where they were the problem. Carlos didn't bother defending himself on social media, he didn't need to. Every reaction, every post, every argument was driving more attention straight to the show. When he finally spoke again, he doubled down. On another podcast episode, he said no one should confuse participation with production, and that too many people think being on camera means owning the moment. He was calm, confident, and completely in control, and fans who understood the game knew he was resetting the balance of power. Behind the scenes, the rest of the cast felt the pressure. Melody Holt kept quiet, but insiders say she knew exactly what Carlos was doing. She saw it as a power move away for him to remind everyone that their fame existed because he gave it a platform. Some of the newer couples reportedly got nervous showing up early to shoots, keeping their phones down, avoiding drama off camera. On the network saw the numbers and they weren't complaining. The controversy was boosting ratings, hashtags were trending again, and people who had stopped watching were suddenly tuning back in just to see what would happen next. But there was still a cost. Without the Scots, producers had to rebuild storylines from scratch, reshoot scenes, and adjust the tone of the season. Their businesses, their marriage, their constant tension had grounded the show in something real, and without that balance, there was a risk of the series drifting too far into empty drama. Carlos knew it, but he also knew evolution was necessary, and if losing the originals was the price of keeping the empire alive, he was willing to pay it. While the cameras kept rolling and the chaos online refused to die down, the Scots were already planning their next move. People close to them whispered that they weren't done with television, not even close. Rumors started floating that Marsau and LaTisha were shopping their own show to streaming platforms, one that would focus on their businesses, their family life, and most importantly, their version of the truth. Insiders hinted it would be raw and unfiltered, a direct response to how they felt edited and misrepresented on Love and Marriage. They wanted to take back control of their story and show that they could stand on their own without Carlos or Own. The idea lit up social media again because fans were already divided between Team Carlos and Team Scots, and now those two groups were turning into two different fan communities entirely. Carlos, on the other hand, didn't flinch. He was already several steps ahead, expanding the Love and Marriage brand into something bigger than Huntsville. Whispers of new spin-offs and new cities started circulating, with fresh couples ready to bring their own chaos to the screen. Carlos wasn't just replacing a cast, he was expanding a universe, one where no single couple could ever hold the show hostage again. The network saw his vision and backed him, fully rolling out teaser promos showing blurred faces and dramatic quotes about loyalty, love, and legacy. It wasn't about who left anymore, it was about what was coming next. And that shift kept the audience glued to the screen. Behind all the noise, though, the real question lingered: did Carlos make the right call, or did he fracture the very empire he built? If the new couples clicked, if the energy stayed high and the ratings kept climbing, he'd be hailed as a visionary who wasn't afraid to make the hard decisions. But if the magic faded and fans lost interest, the blame would fall directly on him. As for Marsau and LaTisha, they might have been cut from Love and Marriage, but they weren't erased. They still had an audience that believed in them and a story that wasn't finished. Whether they returned on a new platform or built something completely different, one thing was certain: they weren't done, and neither was Carlos, because in reality, television, there are no endings, only new storylines waiting for the next scene to start. If you thought the drama was over, think again, because this story is just getting started. Carlos King may have made his move, but Marsau and LaTisha aren't the type to fade quietly. And when egos, money, and legacy collide, you know there's always another twist waiting. So keep your eyes open, because what comes next could shake the whole Love and Marriage universe. Make sure you're locked in right here on EchoSpill, where we bring you the truth, the shade, and the stories nobody else dares to tell. Hit that subscribe, tap the bell, and stay ready, because when the next chapter drops, you'll hear it here first on EchoSpill.